Craving a hot, delicious chili dog, but you don't eat meat and you're tired of vegetarian options? Then try Misty Dogs, a unbelievably good chili dog as long as we don't tell you what's actually in it. What we can say, it's not meat, it's also not plants, and technically it fits the definition of food. What we can't say, where it came from, how it was made, and why it glows a little bit under black light. And for a limited time, use promo code POSTMORTEM for a free side of ambiguous cheese sauce. Misty Dogs, you don't want to know. And I want to thank the sponsors for actually sending us some here to enjoy today. So I'll just take a bite real quick and oh no, that's wrong. That tastes like toothpaste, and it seems to not actually want to go down. What is wrong with this? It's crunchy and why is it cold? Isaiah, can you get me a drink? Welcome to Movie Postmortem, where we dissect films of all kinds, whether they're good, bad, or those guilty pleasures we just can't quit. I'm Reggie Hill, and I'm joined by my nephew, Isaiah Brown. Together, we're here to examine what worked, what didn't, and why we keep coming back for more. So grab your popcorn because no movie is safe from the scalpel on Movie Postmortem. Okay, hello everybody. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and I'll start with a short summary of the film. In Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails reunite against a powerful new adversary, Shadow, a mysterious villain with powers unlike anything they've faced before. With their abilities outmatched in every turn, Sonic must figure out how to ultimately form an alliance in hopes of stopping Shadow and protecting the entire planet. And so, before we get into the nitty gritty details, as we do on Movie Postmortem, let's give our initial thoughts and rating on Sonic 3. I'll let you start, Isaiah.
Okay. Thank you for giving me this introduction here to lead this because number one, I am a huge fan of Sonic. I cannot say enough how much I loved this movie. This movie is a certified like 4 out of 5 for me. I love it so much.
Oh, that's interesting. Just some context for people. I've probably played Sonic the Hedgehog maybe like 5 times. When I was growing up, we were a Nintendo, household. So it was more Mario Brothers. And so I probably like knew somebody who had a, Sega system. So I never really got into the Sonic games. So I probably played, the first level, a
Yeah.
few times and that was it. So I don't have that big attachment. I think the movie is well made, and we'll talk about more of that later. I would give Sonic a 2.5 or 3 out of 5 stars. I think it's probably too inaccessible for people who don't know the character to truly appreciate in that like good movie kind of way.
First of all, how dare you? Second of all, that kind of hurt my soul a little bit. To be honest with you.
I'm just being honest, and I think that's where what I look at most with Sonic is I'm just impressed with the property that, and maybe I'm wrong in this. I felt Sonic was never as popular as Mario, but clearly, that's kind of one of the things we can discuss later, like how important it is that a video game character was, well received, well liked, and which system, which console was more popular. I feel that, Sonic in many ways was far, far better than the Mario Brothers movie, and that's just a fact.
Well, I'll tell you what, mister. Next time you over here, we got some homework to do. You raise a fair point. I'm not gonna pick up the torch and go witch hunting on you. I feel like this movie is more for fans of the property than just casual movie watchers. Even though I still think that this movie is accessible to pretty much everyone, I understand your point here.
One of the things we always kind of talk about is movies that do things, better than they have any right to. And I look at this as an example of that. The movie is good. I would say I've watched all of the Sonic films and they've each gotten, better as they keep doing them. And that's a real, testament to the writing and directing that they even got, to where they are.
Yeah, and that's why we've done this out of order. While we've started with the third movie, we both agree, at least I think we do, that this is probably the best movie of the three.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, this is definitely the best of the three. And it's a good family film, especially, for kids and fans of the game. And so, as we talk about kind of how this film came about, how we got to the place of having a Sonic the Hedgehog 3 to begin with, I think we have to cover something that went down in kind of internet history.
Yeah.
The what we'll call Ugly Sonic.
Yeah, let's roll back 5 years real quick because I don't think y'all understand just how much this broke the internet.
Yeah. And so, how to put it this way, in kind of the middle of 2019, the initial trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog, the first film, was released on the internet. And the biggest problem was that, how do you say, Sonic just looked terrible. This is nothing new. There have been lots of live action movies that have had like a cartoon or animated character. And so you would think that they would simply just say, okay, here's Sonic the Hedgehog, a character that's existed for decades. Make a version of this and put it in the movie. But what the creators decided to do was to make him more like a person, like an actual man. So they changed his proportions, his look, all of the animated features, his eyes. They gave him
it's
human teeth.
it's weird. And plus there's a whole lot of behind the scenes controversy that was behind the Ugly Sonic 2 because apparently what we have now is what the lead artists and animators wanted to do from the very beginning. But apparently the corpos were like, no, we want Ugly Sonic. I was just like, are these people senile?
Yeah, it's really bizarre because looking at what they have now, you'd be like, okay, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Why didn't you start with this? And so I really feel that's one of the best examples of a company saying, you know what? We've gotten feedback on this and we're going to change what we have. The backlash against Ugly Sonic was pretty universal. And it shows how bad the design was, since it's really hard to unite the internet about anything. And I just remember how everyone hated, Ugly Sonic, and
Yeah.
the comparisons to what he looked like, how terrible it was. I would say, and I've thought about this a lot. I feel like on our show, one of the, standards we have for how bad things are is Twilight Baseball. Twilight Baseball is kind of how I would describe how bad the initial design for Sonic was. It really made no sense to have something that ridiculously bad. You could tell
Yeah.
probably that the creators were like, no, we don't like this.
And it's strange because Ugly Sonic was so bad that it led to people creating conspiracies around its creation because people were like, "There's no way people okayed this on purpose." So everyone was like, "Okay, what they probably did was they made Ugly Sonic on purpose so it'll get more publicity and recognition." And I'm just like, first of all, no, and second of all, the studio went bankrupt recreating Sonic and get the recreating Sonic, reanimating him in the movie in the final copy. And so, no, it wasn't just like a publicity stunt. Some some nut job in the studio thought that Ugly Sonic was a good idea. And when the internet combines, and when their uncle, auntie, sister, brother, even the baby came around to spit on Ugly Sonic, that's when they were like, okay, maybe this was a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up because, like you said, it brings up the idea that corporations could not make a mistake. And we clearly have seen them make many mistakes. And this was just a huge example. Also, it doesn't make any sense to do this for publicity because they had to delay the release of the movie. They had a good spot in November of 2019 and they delayed. It took them several months to redesign the character and do all of the fixing they had to do to the film because of that, so that they weren't releasing the film until February of 2020. Movies released in November make a lot more money than movies released in February. So if you believe this was a conspiracy theory to build up
Yeah,
publicity, you would have still released the movie in November, not into February, which is usually one of the lowest grossing months for, movie release. So like
yeah.
that, it just doesn't make any sense.
I truly see. I feel like this has to deal with like denial because for a good day when I first saw Ugly Sonic, I was like, okay, there has to be a conspiracy here because I refuse to believe that somebody in their right mind gave that the okay. It wasn't until I saw that the studio that was responsible for the redesigned Sonic went under. So I was like, okay, never mind. People are just that dumb.
You didn't believe that somebody would actually design a rat man that looked like he had been running from his like meth dealer.
Yeah, I didn't want to believe that people were just that stupid and gave that the okay, but no, they just were.
And so like it's really a good sign. And so that's why again, like I think people should pay the appropriate amount of respect of say the studio listened to the fan criticism. They spent more money. They delayed the release of the film to February of 2020, which was the last month we had release of films before the pandemic shut everything down, which cost them a lot of money. So again, when people say like, "Oh, this is for publicity," no, they lost a lot of money because of this delay. Things were, in their control, things were out of their control, but they listened. They listened to the fans. The film was well received. It was okay. It wasn't spectacular. I think, the goodwill from actually changing the character design plus Jim Carrey's performance, I think carried the film. And like now we are here with, Sonic the Hedgehog
Yeah.
3.
And just for a quick perspective, you've been rolling around this earth longer than I have. And so I just a quick confirmation on something. Because me in my movie watching life, I have never seen a corporation actually go back and change something after the public riots.
I agree. I have not seen that either. And I can think of examples where people did not like the design that was put on. It usually happens when you have something like this, something that's comic or cartoon related, that they do live action, like the live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the Michael Bay produced films.
Oh
People
boy.
hated those designs. They did not change them.
Yeah. And even more recent with me, uh, I've seen a whole bunch of people saying that they aren't that the biggest fans of the Michael Bay Transformers designs,
Oh yeah, those were
and
terrible too.
we have six movies.
Yeah, and so yeah, the idea that a studio would actually listen and go back, delay a film, and change it, I can't think of another example outside of Sonic. And so I really think that that is something that is commendable. Okay, so we've covered, Ugly Sonic, and so let's take a break and then we'll
Yeah.
come back and get into our causes of death or causes of celebration. Miss the good old days of gaming when consoles barely worked? Introducing RetroBox, the only gaming system that brings back the full childhood experience by arriving pre-broken. Premium features include a controller with a drifting D-pad. Your character will always walk slightly left, no matter what. A start button that only works if you press it just right. A cartridge slot that requires a 12-step ritual to work. Blow on it, wiggle it, pray to the old gods, and maybe it'll work. Audio that randomly cuts out. But wait, there is also more. Upgrade to the deluxe Agony bundle and also get a third party memory card that corrupts your save files at random, a power cord that disconnects if you breathe too hard, and a mystery game with no label that will crash at the final level. Pre order now using the promo code POSTMORTEM and receive a free roll of electrical tape because let's be real, you're gonna need it for something. Retrobox. Pain never felt so nostalgic. Okay, and we're back. And so now we want to get into the causes of celebration for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So I'll
Yeah.
let you go ahead.
Now, before I get into my personal cause of celebration, because again, I'm a Sonic fanatic, if you will, because we won't have the same cause of celebration just because of our experiences. But here's one that I know for a fact we both will agree on: Jim Carrey.
Yes, absolutely. We need more
It
Jim Carrey in movies. That's what I feel.
He carried the first movie on his back, and he carried this movie two times. The third one, literally being two characters in one movie. Jim Carrey, you literally have earned your name as the Carrey of Hollywood.
Yes, and it seems like Jim Carrey is only coming out of retirement, then going back into retirement, coming out of retirement for these films. I want him to
Yeah,
keep making these as long as he can.
yeah, yeah,
But I agree with you on that cause of celebration.
yeah. Quick little cause of celebration too, because I want to get into this because this is a very broad one, but I feel like it's necessary.
Okay.
Upon rewatch, I watched this movie three times now. Well, once in theaters, twice with my friends at home, and the third time in preparation for this episode. I believe that 70% of the writing of this movie is perfect.
Hey, I think I agree. I think the writing, I wouldn't say it's perfect, so let me change that. I know all the time I always say I
Again,
agree
I said
100%.
70. I said 70%. So
Yeah. 68% of the time it works every time. I think the writing is a lot better than has any, right to be. And I think that's one of the things that I like about the film and notice is that they were saying like, okay, maybe these are kind of standard tropes, but we're actually going to do them justice and do a good job of it. And as we say on Movie Postmortem, your genre or your intended audience should not limit your ability to make a good product. And it's clear they treat this material with respect. It doesn't matter if it's
Yeah.
about a fast hedgehog, they treat it with respect.
Yeah, and not only that, but they treat the character of Shadow with the respect that he deserves from his games too. The story of Shadow in this movie is heartbreaking, and it just hurts me to my soul because number one, this is something that a whole lot of people in their life is most definitely going to deal with. It's not something that you should, but it's something that can happen nonetheless. To where you have someone that is your entire world, and because of outside circumstances, they're gone and you're just left with that pain that they're no longer there, that they're no longer able to experience things with you. And you're just like, what do I do with this pain? It's killing me from the inside out. The only thing I want to do now is just lash out because I'm so hurt. And Shadow's story is so good to where if I know for a fact that if I would have let myself, I would have got emotional watching the movie.
Yeah, it handles it in a very mature manner where you see him losing a friend very early, in the story, and then I think making it worse for him after that happens, he's immediately put into like, trial storage.
Yeah,
So he doesn't even have time to process the emotions that he's going through fully, and he
yeah.
kind of is woken up, later, and it's like, okay, now have at it. Like now deal with it now after you've been kind of, locked away for a long time.
Yeah, because quick spoiler warning for anyone that hasn't watched the movie. If you haven't, go watch it right now. It's on Amazon. It's pretty much on everything now because movies come out really quickly on
Exactly,
digital
yeah.
nowadays. But the Shadow story is just so rough. And he's in this top secret military headquarters, being treated as both a test subject and a dangerous weapon by literally everyone, except for one person. The one person that in that whole facility that treats him like a friend, because let's be honest, Shadow's adorable. He is. He's adorable when he's not brooding. And because of situations, he loses literally the only person he cares about. And so and then immediately after that, he's put into deep sleep for 50 years. Could you imagine the most traumatizing moment of your life just being replayed for you 50 years straight? You're just dreaming, just literally nonstop dreaming about the same traumatizing moment over and over again. To where I'm just like, you know what, Shadow? I understand you. I don't condone what you're doing. God, I don't condone it at all. But I understand how much this hurts you.
Yeah, and I think that's where they do a great job of making his motivation for what he wants to do when he's awakened very believable. Like you said, and we've talked before in other movies, I think we talked about this also in Transformers, where if you look at a person who doesn't have time to process everything that's happening to them, it sometimes makes it explains why they do the things that they do in terms of a villain. Because if you would imagine, like we talked before, like Megatron, if he was like, okay, if he gave him a chance to calm down, if he wasn't hit with all of this stuff right away, he might have made different decisions. Same thing
Yeah,
with Shadow. Shadow, like you said, it was a great point. Like he had to be stuck with this trauma, this pain for 50 years and not be able to do anything about it. So this is not like, oh, he's gone through any type of
yeah,
therapy. It's fresh in his mind still.
yeah. And it's only when he actually has a moment to just sit down and talk to where he's actually able to realize maybe I am going off the deep end here.
Yes. And again, I think that's the point that we've seen like this theme in several films. Again, having an opportunity to talk about what you're going through and having a time, having a break to just simply say, let me calm down and think about this rather than react immediately and continually to react, taking a pause to actually process.
Before I move a little bit further into this, I just want to hit home just how much I love this story because this is a this we're gonna get a little bit personal here. Fair warning, I'm being me and him, we're being transparent with you listeners. We both have lost people in our lives that were incredibly close to us, and that pain, it will never go away. You get buried managing it, but it will always be there because there'll be times where you're just thinking, man, I wonder what they would have thought about this right here, or man, I wish I could do this with them. That pain hurts, and I don't know what it was like for you, but I was barely functional for a long time.
Oh yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, there were there were moments where I literally just like could not function properly, and it even started to affect my personal life. I almost didn't even graduate from school because of it. And so Shadow's message in this movie, like I said earlier, if I would let myself cry, I could have. The message of the star shines even when the star is gone is just beautiful. And that's something that I'm going to keep in my heart forever because that is a beautiful message.
No, I'm glad you said that. And that's one of the things that I like to point out about movies. Not every movie is good. Most movies aren't good, in my opinion. But every movie can have a message that you'll keep and carry with you. And I agree with that. And I felt the same way watching this film, where I always say, like, if a movie has one moment that stirs a real emotion in me and actually it's something that I can carry moving forward, it was worth it. And I felt that way about this film, the way it actually deals with grief and the way that it has those types of messages. It makes it worth the price of my AMC A list.
Yeah, literally in that scene where Shao is finally just like taking a moment to breathe, to get all of his emotions out. Sonic is like, in this life, I've learned that there's one thing stronger than pain. That's the love you felt for each other. I'm just like, yes, this, clip it, record it. I want that on replay forever.
Yes, and again, this is in a movie called
This is
Sonic the
this
Hedgehog
is in a
3.
kids movie. A movie where Jim Carrey disco dances in a field of
Lasers.
lasers.
No, and again, like that's what I was surprised by. The emotional beats in this film, I think, were really well done. I think a lot of the other stuff wasn't that well done. We'll get to that later, but
Well,
yeah,
we'll get to that in a little
yeah,
bit.
I'll agree with you on this point, especially. I think this was the biggest thing I would say as a cause of celebration for the film is that they handle mature themes, which are, sadly, as you said, things that people of all ages, even kids, will understand. They handle those very well.
And so here's my cause. Here's the next cause celebration for me. This is a video game movie that is not ashamed of being a video game movie. And that is the biggest praise I can give for this movie as a video game movie. Because again, let's flash all the way back. The Mario movie was just the Mario movie in name alone. Like you watch the movie back and then you're just like, what is this? How does this have to do with an Italian plumber going through pipes and rescuing a princess?
I thought that was a biography.
Oh goodness.
That was based on a real person, a
Yeah.
real business.
And even more recently, the Borderlands movie, which I refuse to talk about because if I get into that, I'm gonna get unreasonably upset again. Because I feel like those movies were ashamed to admit that they were from video games, and not even ashamed to, but just like even with the Borderlands movie, they just flat ignored the fact that they could have used the game as inspiration. They were just like, "Now we're gonna do our own thing, and we're gonna be garbage." Here, Shadow's story is ripped directly from the games, not one to one, but pretty much the same beats. Robotnik, he's wearing his video game accurate suit from the end of the movie onwards. There are so many other references that you would understand if you played Sonic games, that you're a Sonic fan, and it's just chef's kiss. It's beautiful. I love every moment of it.
Well, yeah, that's a point that only you could bring up. As I've said before, I don't have that past history with the games. And I agree with you, though. Like, in the very least, a movie, if you're a movie studio, you should be making movies for fans of that property. So for a Sonic fan to be able to say that, I think was like the highest praise they could go for. A lot of that will be lost on me, and we can talk more about that kind of later, where I had a lot of questions about exactly who these people were or kind of some of the things that were happening because I'm not as familiar with the games. But that's one of the things where I didn't feel like I was missing significant amount of things. So that those tributes to the game could be extra, like, icing on the cake. I felt that there was enough cake for me to be like, okay, this wasn't a complete waste of time watching it, but it is good when these films, I think, respect the actual property that they came from.
Well, I've already hit on this before, saying like I like the writing of this movie, and that's especially evident with Sonic because in this movie there are events that happen. Shadow, just in his like struck in revenge, like in rage, he does the same thing to Sonic that Gunn did to him with Maria, where he pretty much takes out Tom, which is Sonic's is that's Sonic's Maria pretty much, and then it sends Sonic down a path that Shadow is literally on still, and it's beautiful that it's because of what Tom told Sonic to where he's able to pull himself from it. He was like, no, I can't. This isn't who I am. I don't want to be. I don't want to let my pain fuel my emotions. And so I absolutely love this because for uh for a good 5-ish minutes in the movie, Sonic and Shadow are the same character.
Yes, I think
And
they actually handled that visually, thematically quite well.
yeah, my only issue is that because it's a kids movie, I feel like they should have just killed off Tom because there's no way he could have survived that.
Yes, and that's where, I agree. I think the moment called for Sonic to lose someone so he would truly understand life as Shadow had seen it, and they kind of pulled their punch there as Shadow literally pulled
Yeah,
his punch and didn't apparently kill, Tom, as you would
yeah,
have expected based on what actually happened in that scene. And so I think that's where it is. It does show like it's, you know, unwillingness to
yeah,
really commit to more mature events in this
yeah.
story.
Even though he doesn't die, it still has the exact same effect that was needed in the moment. Sonic thinks that he is dying.
Yes, yeah, it has, like you said, you just have to see him unconscious, know that he's hurt, and that sends Sonic on this just journey to, like you said, the quickly kind of speed run being like Shadow, saying like, okay, give me the most power I can have so I can take this guy out. Give me the Master Emerald, even though I said we weren't going to use this device ever again. I'm going to use it to take this guy out. Like he's acting rash again, like we said, like it's that inability to have time to process grief or even to talk about it. He's just going to like do something drastic because he needs to do something right now. All right, so we've covered a lot of causes of celebration. So let's take another
Yeah.
quick break and we'll come back with some causes of death and maybe some script stitch ups. Looking for a thrill the whole family can enjoy? Welcome to Extreme Petting Zoo, where the animals are wild, the waivers are ironclad, and the fun is forever. Hands-on encounters include cuddle a crocodile. If you can sneak up on it, you deserve a hug. Tug of war with a tiger. Don't let go or, well, just don't let go. Hand feed the hungry hippo. What's the worst that could happen? Gorilla high five challenge. Think fast, because they do. Important safety rules. No sudden movements or slow movements. Just probably don't move at all. If an animal looks hungry, assume it is. Don't make eye contact with Kevin, the extra unpredictable ostrich. We legally have to remind you that petting is a suggestion, not a guarantee. And for a limited time only, use promo code POSTMORTEM for a free bucket of mystery bait. Is it for you or for the animals? You'll find out when you get here. Extreme Petting Zoo. If you pet it, you might regret it. All right, and we're back. And so we've had a lot of praise for this film. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with actually liking a film. That's how it should be. And so
Yeah.
let's talk about a few maybe possible improvements or things we didn't love.
Yeah. And let's be honest. How many people want to go out there and watch a movie and be like, "Oh, this was awful"?
Yeah, no one, hopefully.
Yeah. This is a cause of death for this movie. When the movie isn't focused on Sonic and Shadow and like the power of grief and the power of like pain and loss and whatnot, the movie somewhat dips a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. To me, anytime the main characters, the, animated characters weren't on screen, I felt it just was almost just unwatchable. And I think this is better than the previous films where they leaned on like the wedding and the human characters. The human characters that are not Jim Carrey related are just really bad. Like, and they don't really have a reason to exist in the story.
Yeah, it had that moment when I was in the theater when they were doing the disguise scene where they're about to break into that place and they disguise and the woman turns into her sister. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, and it's just those moments. I get it. You want to kind of thank and keep paying the actors who were, instrumental in maybe getting the series off the ground in the first one, but it's just like, less is better for
Yeah.
Sonic's family and those other human characters. And so,
And I'll give him this. My most disliked character in the second movie is technically only here for about a minute and a half, so less is more. It worked there.
yeah,
but
so like
but
I think
really I would rather her just not be there at all. I'm gonna be
I
honest with
agree.
you.
Yeah, I think this is one where this film is really past the point of needing oh, well, we're bringing Sonic to the real world and we're going to tell his story as anchored by these interactions with humans. I think they moved past that. I would not miss the human characters if they never showed up.
For a movie about a hedgehog that can move at super fast speeds, there aren't a whole lot of moments where he's really fast.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to bring up. I don't understand why Sonic is no longer really fast. And I think that's one of the things that I'd consider kind of a cause of death for this film, for me especially, is that by this time there are now one, two, three, four, like kind of super powered, beings, and they don't really seem that different in terms of their powers. And again, Sonic's super speed, which was such a useful, tool for him early in the franchise, he doesn't really seem to do it anymore. So like I don't know, besides
Yeah,
occasionally doing the little Sonic spinball thing, like it's just kind of you see all these animal, critters kind of fighting each other,
yeah.
punching each other, but it's not really Sonic-y to
There
me.
were there was that moment when he was running towards the like the laser dome, and he's like, "I'm not gonna make it." And I was like, "How?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be faster than this guy?"
Yeah, it's almost like I feel like he's been kind of nerfed to where he's not really that much faster than anybody else. And so
Because
like
again, in the let's roll back a little bit. In the first movie, Sonic was so fast to where time almost stood still for him in that scene where he's like surrounded by missiles and they're just like frozen in midair. I'm just like, based on what we've seen in the first movie, you should be fast enough to make it in there.
yes, like and every other, video game character in this film is like practically like as fast as he is. And so like I felt like that really um didn't make sense to me. And also it made the scenes less creative because it's just more about all these characters just kind of punching at each other and they're all pretty much the same. And to me, that was another kind of cause of death. Is like not only do we have all these super, critters who are kind of doing the same thing, none of them outside of Sonic or and Shadow are actually essential to the story. And so that's where like, oh yeah, they did introduce these characters in the last, film, and they're here, but not for really any reason. I mean, Knuckles is pretty much just comic relief, at this point. And so, like, again, their unique powers of like, okay, I thought Knuckles could punch through anything, but he can't most of the time. And I don't know, like Tails' ability to fly does not seem to ever really play a role in the film whatsoever.
Yeah, this feels very familiar from our Captain America episode, to where
Yes.
one or three characters are such strong points in the movie, you're willing to like look past a few other negative details.
Yes. It's like, yeah, it's okay, but it was just like, yeah, like where are they? Why are they here? And that's where again, like if you had to lose, like let's just do that. If you had to lose one character from the movie that's not a human, because we could lose all the humans, you lose one of the Sonic friends, which one would you lose?
Actually, no, I think now that I'm thinking about it, we can get rid of Tails.
Yeah, I feel Tails doesn't add anything. Yeah, and I think that's where giving the characters more to do and actually staying true to whatever their intention is as hard as you add characters. I mean, this is almost the equivalent of like, Captain America Civil War by this point where you have so many superpowered characters. And to me, that was actually another one of the kind of big causes of death. And again, like this is just where for me, as a person who's not a huge fan or even familiar with the properties, by the end of this film, you're like, okay, great. We just got like six or seven more superpowered beings. And it starts to get into that like character fatigue for having like so many characters like Sonic, where it's like, oh, he was very unique before, but now we have multiples. And they
That's
have a
valid. Yeah,
post-credit scene where there's multiple, there was somebody else or
yeah,
these other things. So it's like it gets to be like too much.
yeah,
And then it gets to that whole power scaling and various other things because
yeah,
like you're scaling and adding in so many characters.
yeah. And not to diss you on this point, and not to diss you or any other people that are casual, like uh, not really casual, but like avid movie watchers, but like casual video game players. I feel like this is a I feel like this is a problem that's going to bridge the viewers the movies onwards, to where they're going to bring in more things for the video games, most because they have to. But in response to that, they're probably going to lose more just casual movie watchers that aren't familiar with the property. I feel like that's an evil that's going to be present from this moment on. But yeah, I feel like it's a necessary evil here, because what are they going to do?
No, I actually agree with that. I think that's a great point. I think Marvel hit that point with their franchise, like just the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe. I would say Endgame for them was where it was like, okay, if you want to get off now, that's fine. And I would say that's how I feel about this. Like I could literally just see myself stopping at Sonic 3 and like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to watch,
Yeah.
Sonic 4, 5, and 6. It's just going to be more stuff that I have no knowledge of at all. And so it's like, oh yeah, I got enough that I needed to. And so now we have a built-in audience and everybody else is okay if you get off now.
Yeah, because I can almost guarantee you that I knew exactly what you were thinking when the movie was almost over. You were just sitting there thinking like, wait, who's this pink girl? Wait, there's a robot Sonic? What is happening?
Yeah,
Who
like
are
there's
these
a
people?
robot Sonic, there's a pink girl, which maybe was a hedgehog, I don't know. But it's like, okay, we're just adding more and more, characters like this, which again, it's like, okay, I get it, but like this
It's
is where
like
I get off the train. Yeah.
I get you're just like, okay, at this point I understand that this isn't for me. This is for fans these are for Sonic fans. I like this movie, but it's not for me anymore.
So is there any stitch ups that you would suggest for this film?
I feel like I've somewhat touched on a little bit of stitch ups that we could have done. Number one, give us more consequences and accountability. That's my biggest thing. Because again, like I said earlier, Tom, Maddie, and Team Sonic they should still be fugitives from Gun because they have no reason to trust them after all this. But they're just at the end just having s'mores and having a good time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we have to introduce stakes in films because otherwise, like the moments, whether they're, good moments or moments that make us sad, they don't really mean as much because you're not committing to them. And I think that that's one of the problems with the franchise. They're not really willing to commit to any consequences. It seems that there's only one person that you would imagine in this film who actually died. And just again, based on the history of this film, I doubt that even. And so like they just don't seem capable of being able to commit to that.
Yeah. And no, and number two, for a good rewrite, again, you don't have to kill Tom. It would have made more sense for him to die. But even at the end of the movie, show him like in a full body cast or something, because there's no way how Shadow punched him. He would just had a broken arm after all that. You cannot convince me that in that moment where Shadow was fully intending to strike with the intent to kill, that he only gave him a broken arm. You cannot gaslight me into thinking that movie.
I agree. I would say this. Let's think a little deeper here. This film was, it was projected to make a lot of money. I don't have the numbers in front of me. It made a lot of money. And so I am pretty sure that they knew they were going to be able to do another one after this. Why don't you go like the Empire Strikes Back route? Why don't you leave Tom's fate a little bit like in the, undecided or a cliffhanger, so that you don't show him just being well at the end of this film. Let's just
Oh
leave him in
yeah,
the hospital.
that's even better. And here's how I could rewrite the ending scene in the movie, which I feel like pretty much only existed just for those little cameo moments at the end of the movie. But let's rewrite it like this: instead of them having that little s'more party, we let's rewind a little bit. After everyone reconciles, let's have them all in the hospital alongside Tom. He doesn't have to be out of it, but he could just be like conscious enough to be like, Sonic, you did good here. I'm proud of you. And they'll be there for a moment with Tom, getting their emotions out, being sorry and all that other stuff, emotions, right?
Yeah.
And then we can lean into them having a feel good race later on.
Yeah, exactly. I think it adds more realism to what actually happened, and it still gives you the ability to close on an upbeat moment. Because again, I get that's how most people want to end their, film experience.
Yeah, because Sonic 3, you cannot gaslight me into thinking that he was just mostly okay after that. I will eat my hat. Like his fist should have gone through his torso.
Yeah. They did not make that believable at all, in my opinion. And that's the thing, like when I saw that moment coming, I really thought like, oh wow, you're gonna actually see, consequences.
Yeah,
Tom is gonna be an unfortunate, a victim to this, misdirected rage because
yeah,
Shadow is going to hit him with the full force because he thinks the person he's hitting is the one who killed Maria, the person that he cared about in this world, the only
yeah.
person. So yeah,
Because
that's not a
Lily,
love tap.
Lily in the theater thinking like, oh man, they really just went there. And like,
Yes.
oh, Tom's still unconscious. He's going to the hospital. They really just went there with this movie. And then, wait, what? He's okay? Huh?
That reminds me of the animated G.I. Joe movie where you can tell that Duke was supposed to be killed, but the studio kind of copped out at the last minute, and then at the end they just do a voiceover, "Hey everybody, Duke is okay." And I'm like, wait, he took a snake spear to the heart and passed out. He didn't go into a coma. That was supposed to be him dying. It's like they just, we're not gonna do it. Let's keep him alive. All
Uh,
right, so we've covered all of that. So let's revisit our scores. I will say that this is a guilty pleasure. I will stay with like 2.5 out of 5 stars. The morals, the deeper emotional beats did resonate with me, and for that reason, I think it's a film that was worth watching. And for fans of the film, I think you're definitely going to enjoy it. I said before, I think this is clearly the best of the Sonic franchise, although I will honestly say I'd probably be comfortable kind of getting off the ride at this point.
yeah, I enjoyed the scenery, but my stop is over here now.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, for me, uh, like I said earlier, I'm gonna revise my score a little bit. After taking a good hour and 30 minutes to uh, comb through the plot holes, the conveniences, and the whatnot, this is gonna feel cheap. But I'm bringing my score from a 4 out of 5 to a 3.75 out of 5 stars.
No, that's fair.
I love as a fan of this as a fan of Sonic, I still love this movie to an unhealthy amount. But I can see even I don't have blue tinted sunglasses.
That is fair. So that's it for this episode of Movie Postmortem. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us 5 stars because even bad podcasts deserve a good review. Remember, whether it's good, bad, or just a guilty pleasure, every movie deserves a postmortem. Thanks for listening.
And as always, Maria, we'll see you next time.